Comic Book Savant, episode 448. Welcome back to the Comic Book Savant podcast. I'm your host, James Harris. This episode is going to be a trade review. We're going to be doing a review for Oblivion Song Chapter 2. I know previously on Spinner Rack Bros, me and Heath reviewed the first trade paperback that collected the first 6 issues of the Image comic / Skybound paperback written by Robert Kirkman and Lorenzo di Felici. I hope I pronounced that correctly. I get it confused. And we kind of were split on it. I liked it a little bit better than Heath did, so I didn't want to bother him too much with the review on this one because it was a book that he necessarily said he might not want to come back to, so I decided to take the reins on this one. But before we get into the main part of the episode, I want to give a shout out to Heath over at Serial at Midnight. You can find him at serialatmidnight.com. You can also find him over at YouTube at YouTube.com/Serial at Midnight as well. We do have collab videos over there that I've done on his channel. Plus, we have the episodes of Spinner Rack Bros that we have done here as well. So you can see me do some videos with him, and you can hear him over on podcast form over here as well. So definitely that's something you want to check out. Also, again, hit up the website, hit up his YouTube channel, his social medias, it's Serial Midnight, but I'll have all the links to everything down in the episode here. So if you go over to the website, once you listen to this episode, I'll have all the links to social media, website, YouTube. So if you couldn't catch it now when I'm saying it, you'll have it all there to find all his pertinent information. And we do got more collabs coming in the future. So don't worry. Schedules haven't lined up right now for us to do as much as we wanted to do, but we already got stuff planned in the works. Just got to sit down, get schedules ironed out to get it done. But again, this title's Oblivion Song, published by Image, Skybound, which is Kirkman's label under Image. Trade retails for roughly around $9.99. You can probably find it cheaper on online retailer sites like In Stock Trades, Amazon, or even digitally if you get it through like Comixology as well. So you can always get it a little bit cheaper. It's written by Robert Kirkman. Also, artwork is done by Lorenzo di Felici. Colors work is done by Annalisa Leone. Lettering is done by Russ Wooten. And this trade collects issues 7 through 12. Now, I do want to state a disclaimer here. I bought the individual issues. Now, I know this was a sticking point for Heath because, especially when it came to the artwork, it changed my perspective on the artwork. Now, these are kind of bare bones trades from how Heath, if you hadn't listened to that episode, definitely go back and listen to it. I'll have a link to it in the description as well for this episode on the website, so you can go back if you hadn't listened to that one yet. But he pretty much said that the trade was pretty bare bones, no back matter, no letters, pages, anything like that. I thought about what changed me about the artwork, because we both kind of had an issue with the artwork when we first read it. It was one of the issues had some letters. It wasn't a letters page, but it was basically like a kind of interview thing that Kirkman did of Di Felici. And he talked about how his mom inspired him to draw, and that, you know, he wasn't the most talented artist, but he had the love for drawing based upon his mom being an artist and like kind of a struggling artist. And it was something that gave her so much passion that transferred over to him. And just like certain things, it's like, I mean, not everybody's going to be Jim Lee. It's all different types of artworks and styles out there. One artist especially that I had the biggest problem with when on another Kirkman book was Charlie Adler. When he first came on The Walking Dead, coming from Tony Moore, I was like, oh gosh, this artwork's crap. And over time, I adjusted to the arts, the change in art style between the two artists, and he became one of my favorite artists because he did a good job with doing the artwork. He was consistent, always on time, and I think that's just as important as having pretty artwork, because how many times has Jim Lee had a book he was working on that he never finished or got delayed tremendously, outside of him doing covers for something. So, again, even though he's one of my favorite artists of all time, he can't meet a deadline to save his life. And it's, I think, just as much as the initial aesthetics of the art, it's like consistency in his storytelling. Storytelling is just as much a part of it. And I feel like after seeing that and seeing his character designs, all that was in back matter in the single issues that weren't in the these individual trades, the chapter 1, chapter 2. I'm assuming I don't have chapter 2 trade. Again, because I just kept buying it single issues. That's how I initially bought it. And I just kept buying it that way because of that back matter, especially once he told me about that. Now, Kirkman always has a very specific schedule on how he releases certain things. He's done this with all his series where initially he'll do like the trade, and the trade is pretty much bare bones. It's just the main content itself. Then he's been known to do where he does like hardcovers, the yearly like hardcover editions, like library editions or oversized hardcovers. I don't know. I'm looking this up right now because I think it would really go a long way in how I would recommend you buy this series if you are interested in it, for sure. And lo and behold, good thing I checked while I'm sitting here talking to you about it, because I didn't think about doing this beforehand. When is this due to come out? Let's see. This is... It was a hardcover released, but it couldn't have been of the whole series. Now I'm curious, because Kirkman normally, like I said, he does the trades that normally come out, like issue 6 comes out the next month, that trade is out. He does a good turnaround, has a good schedule of releasing these out, and then he would do per year the next trade. I don't know if he's going to follow the same pattern that he has with previous books with Oblivion Song. That's what I'm trying to find out as we're speaking here now. But anyway, this volume collects issues 7 through 12, and the breakdown on the trade is as follows. Nathan's cold world comes crashing down around him. For the sake of two worlds, he must pick up the pieces and carry on. And, again, picking up from what we learned in the first volume, this is very cinematic. This has actually already been optioned for a film. I talked about it back in my roundup from news from San Diego Comic-Con a few episodes back. I can't remember what studio picked up the rights to it, but it is being developed for a major motion picture. We're not sure, if it's going to cover, the first trade, or, if that will be the source material, the first 12 issues. And that was one thing Heath spoke on, too, that it was written more as an episodic full piece. How they put the trade together is it's no stop and breaks to show you where issues start and stop. It's it says it's chapter 1, and it's like a continuous piece. You can sit down and read it in a sitting or two on how he described it, with no pauses and breaks until we can tell between issues. Where, of course, for me, we're reading the individual issues, it read totally different because I had those breaks, and they kind of do a few pages at the beginning of the next issue, kind of setting up the events that happened the issue before, similar to how you get a recap at the beginning of a TV show. That was one thing he said that was kind of an off thing for him as well, and that it felt like a comic that was trying to sell a movie, which we now know it has sold the movie and or episodic show. It does have a little bit more television, or this is optionable material. So that is definitely something to be aware of and going in it. I didn't think it hampered the book, but again, I read the single issues compared to reading the collected edition. So I can't speak fully. I can only go off of my brother Heath and what he, how he described his experience reading the trade to me reading the single issues. And it was definitely none of the back matter, none of the character sketches were there at all. So that is definitely something you have to consider on which format you would buy it on. Like I said, I started buying the individual issues. I just kept to that. But like I said, I'm trying to get classification on what's going on here. Because most of his other books do it, so it only makes sense that it would be the same way for this series. But I'm trying to find it quickly, and I'm not finding what I want to find at all. No, I'm not finding it. Okay, so maybe not, or it just hasn't been solicited yet, which is strange because I think the third volume paperback has already been solicited, if I remember correctly. So I just thought maybe if Image was going to do a like a library edition that would collect 12 issue chunks like Walking Dead and Walking Dead and Invincible did, because those always sold extremely well. But I don't see anything. I'm even on Skybound's website right now. Let's see. Titles coming soon. Big titles. I know that's about new series, latest releases. This is gonna bug me because if I tell you guys one thing and then like right after this episode airs, check it out, and then it'll be like, oh no, it's something else. I'm gonna feel really stupid. I hate that. Okay, Oblivion song news. Comics trailer. You know what? I'm getting frustrated with this. November. Just checking something. Nope. Well, I guess I was absolutely wrong because I'm even looking at Skybound solicits for November, and nothing. Just the individual issues and the trades. I'm not seeing a hardcover. Maybe it's something he'll do down the road, but as of the recording of this episode, I'm not seeing anything concrete about the hardcover, which is kind of disappointing, but it is what it is. But what I would have to say about this second volume, first and foremost, what I stated earlier, I've grown way more comfortable with Lorenzo de Felici's art style. It's very unique, and with all the different creatures and monsters, and it really plays into so much creation. He's doing a lot of creation here. So his style, he's a good storyteller. Sometimes I still think the biggest issue that he has with his artwork is he's getting better, but it's still like, I think the one weakness is making it perfectly clear which character is which, because sometimes character designs, especially when Nathan and his brother in the first volume, and even in parts in this volume, you saw them that sometimes when action sequences happened, it was kind of hard to tell them apart. He got better with his female characters and some of his other characters, just random characters in the world, that he's getting more comfortable in his style and making them more unique, and you can tell who's who. Kirkman, again, I can't speak highly enough as him as a writer. He's doing a good job with the world building, and it's enough surprises and twists and plot turns to keep you coming back month after month. And like when I buy comics, and I talked about this in the Ask Comic Book Savant episode 2, I wait for sales and stuff to come up so I can get as many comics as possible. So a lot of times, instead of waiting for the trade, because I can, these are relatively quick reads. I read them relatively quickly, if I could talk. So I normally get these like after a month or two after they come out. A lot of times they're like, on Comixology, I get them $1.69 or something like that an issue. Or if I catch an Image sale, they'll have a random sale. I'll pick them up for like about 99 cents an issue or 80 some cent an issue because they'll have a sale and you get a discount. So I normally grab Oblivion Song kind of like that, and I gather enough, and then I'll read the lot that is, going to be included in the trade and just review from that. But again, like I said, from everything he's told me, it misses all the back matter, and they have cool little stuff. And, and Robert Kirkman is always good for addressing issues that pop up in the comics and things, and he talks to you directly. I always like his pages. I just did a massive read through of the last, 18 issues of The Walking Dead to finish the series off. And he does so much where, the letters pages is where it starts with a section with him talking directly to you as a comic fan about what you just read and wait till you see what's next type thing. And so I love those kind of things. And like I said, that was so heartfelt, the like interview piece or the piece where Lorenzo de Felici, I think it's like the back of issue 2. It's not back at issue 1, because I think back at issue 1 he shows like his character designs, which were really cool, and monster designs when they first started, because this was a totally surprise project. This just showed up on shelves, just random. They've worked on this book. They're way ahead. I think they were a year plus into this project before it hit stands. So they're way ahead of us where they are. And again, that's why I say his artwork he's gotten more comfortable in the world and the characters, because he created all this stuff from scratch. This, the alternate dimension that they go back and forth to, all of that is from notes and what he came up with and pitched back and forth between him and Kirkman. So I commend, not a lot of artists do that. They have a lot of reference. When you write or draw a Marvel comic, you have decades of, content to reference from other writers and artists. When you're creating something totally new and unique, you got to come up with it. And not everyone has the imagination and or skill to do that. And I feel like, that's where his strong point as an artist is, because his imagination is limitless when he comes up with these funky looking creatures in this world, this other dimension. It's really, really stands out. So, again, I commend him. He's becoming one of my favorite new artists that, again, I knew nothing about, that this book has put him on my radar, and I enjoy his artwork. Like I stated earlier, this is one of those books that's a very quick and easy read, but it's enough intrigue, characterization, action, mystery is worth the price of the book. It's not for everyone. I'm a big sci-fi fan, and again, Robert Kirkman is certain writers over time in my interaction with them as being a fan and reading their work, that they're just bankable for me. Is him, Jason Aaron, Brian Michael Bendis, Greg Rucka. It's just certain writers, when I see their name on a project, I don't really care who's drawing it, unless it's somebody artwork that I really just dislike. That I'm going to pick it up based on the name appeal, and 97.5% of the time, I'm never let down by what they write. And that's just the thing. Like, some people are like, well, if I can read a book in like 5 minutes, it's not worth it. If it entertains you and you're intrigued by the story and you're ready to read the next issue by the time you finish it, then they're doing something right, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't matter if it takes you an hour to read a comic book or 5 minutes. If you enjoy it, all that matters at the end of the day is if you enjoy what you're reading. It doesn't matter how quickly or how long it takes you to, but long as the end result is enjoyment on your part, then it is worth picking up and telling people about. Because if you enjoy it, it's similar people out there that have the same interest and likes that will like it as well. So they might not know, so let them know. That's what this whole platform is all about. That's what I do. I read stuff that I like, and I let you guys know, and then I tell you about stuff that I read that I didn't care for, and I give you good and bad reasons why, and that even though it might not appeal to me, you might try it and like it, do it all positively. And, I think it's, a negative culture sometimes where everyone has to beat up on everything. If they don't like it, they have to like bury it. You don't have to bury it. You can just say what you don't like about it and say, hey, but yet and still, it is some positives here with this. Mentalities need to change. And I hope I do a good job in promoting and spreading that positivity in our community, because I think sometimes in our community as comic fans, it can be a real negative sometimes, or derogatory, or non-inclusive. So I hope we are doing a good job at that as the Savant Society, as the community that we've built with that we do the opposite. But anyway, I have it here. This is why I do bullet points way in advance before I record episodes, because the thing I just said earlier that I didn't know is right here in the bullet point if I just had looked at my bullet points. Oblivion Song was optioned by Universal Studios to be made into a major motion picture with I'm sorry about that. I'm prepping for my procedure, and I'm on a full liquid diet, and I have to like drink liquids like every so often, so I can't not help the alarm going off constantly. But I apologize about that. Universal Studios motion picture with Sean O'Keefe writing the script. So that's all we know at this point, that it's been optioned. They have someone writing a script, but we don't know when this might go into production as of yet. And again, this news came out of San Diego Comic-Con back in July, so we haven't had any updates since then about where that's at. And it might be might be San Diego next year before we might get some movement, maybe hear about a director or something like that, or maybe get some casting notes. And the last thing I was saying, which I played up on, or I talked about earlier in the episode where I was saying Heath's, and it does, I have to say that it does, the format is very cinematic. It's like you're reading a storyboard or a TV show or even a movie, which is a little bit different from most comics. And surprisingly, where it bothered Heath, it hasn't bothered me as much going through, because it gives that epic scope, that sci-fi feel, and I kind of feel like I want to see that, it's not so small scale. It's big, encompassing, big scenes, big action. So I kind of dig it, and I can't wait to kind of see where they might go in the direction for the movie. I wonder, because kind of the creature designs are a little bit, they're not nightmarish, but they're like very deformed, which could be, would they go like a sci-fi horror route, or just sci-fi based on the designs, and are they going to largely change the designs or the look and feel that Kirkman and Felici have created in the book? Because I wonder, because I guess if you do that in real life, or like even in CGI, it might have more of a horror kind of vibe to it. So I wonder, would it be a rated R? Would it be a PG-13 type situation? So I'm curious to see how maybe that would pan out. But all in all, I have to say my rating on this book is a good read. I gave it an 8.5 out of 10. As a book that I'm going back to, month after month. When I do sit down with my issues to read, I enjoy it, and it really sets me up. And I'm surprised the path it took me on along the way, and to see where it's going next. And like I said, I'm after reading this, I'm stoked. About to see where it goes, because I don't read a ton of sci-fi books. I've been finding, but Image, I feel like is, outside of Star Wars, which is more space opera, I guess, than straight up sci-fi. But Image has been doing a good job. I've been, what was the other book that I tried? I think I reviewed it on the YouTube channel. I think it's called Copperhead, or maybe I talked about it here. That's a sci-fi series that was done over at Image that I really liked, and I want to go back and finish reading the series. I read the first trade, or first issue or first trade. I did a first read. I did some type of episode on it where I talked about the series, and it's sci-fi, but it's not a ton of it. Really good sci-fi out there, like in comics. So this book really scratches the itch for me in that way. So like I said, I look forward to when I sit down and read it. I really enjoy it. I think it's probably my favorite sci-fi book out there. The only other book I could say I read this past year that was sci-fi that I liked probably a little bit more than this was, and if you haven't read this yet, definitely this is a recommendation as well. Green Lantern Earth 1 Volume 1. I think it's Gabriel Hardman, and I can't remember who else co-wrote it with him. But really good sci-fi story. This is probably like my second favorite after that one for sci-fi. So, yeah, really feel that itch for me. And again, it's not a must go out and buy, because I feel like some people will like it, some people won't. Not everyone is a huge fan of Robert Kirkman like I am. So, you know, it could be, your mileage may vary is what I would like to say. But if you are a fan of Kirkman, or you like his writing style, and you like different things that he's written in the past, I think you will really enjoy it. It's a, like I said, fun, intriguing series with a lot of good world building going on in it, and a lot more story to tell. You can tell like they're way ahead. Like I said, they were like at least a year, I think they said in the back pages. When this even launched, they were already, you know, we just got their first year, so no telling. They probably got the next few years, you know, done already. So it's going to be fun to go along the ride for the rest of the journey. So, again, can't recommend it enough. But that's all I have for you guys for this episode. Like I said before, at the beginning of the episode, check out my brother from another mother, Mr. Heath Holland, over at Serial at Midnight. .com, and also you can find him on YouTube at youtube.com Serial at Midnight as well. But I'll have all the particulars on the website in this episode posting, so just go there and I'll have links to everything, as well as the Spinner Rack Bros episode we did where we reviewed Volume 1 of this series as well. And I'll be doing a review for Volume 3 coming up. I will just keep the reviews for that here on the podcast, because that's where it originally started. I won't jump around and put it somewhere else, so you can easily find it here. But that's all I have for you guys for this episode. As always, you can follow me on social media at Comic Book Savant on Twitter and Instagram. It's the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/the Savant Society. If you'd like to support the show, you can hit up the Patreon, which is patreon.com/Comic Book Savant. For a donation of $1 a month at least, you can get access to these Patreon exclusive podcast feed. The Savant Extra podcast is a whole nother weekly podcast that I do exclusively for the Patreon, so that could be worth your donation right there. If you can't, it's not a requirement. It's just to ask. If you like the content that I create and you want to help support and improve the show, that's a way you can go about doing it. If you can't do that, you can always check out the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, tweet me, join the Facebook group. Feedback is all about feedback and interaction. So anyway, if you can't monetarily contribute and help the show, again, it doesn't hurt anything. It's helpful. It's super helpful in going into covering the cost of creating the podcast, but it's not a must do, because I know everyone's financial situation is totally different. But it's other things you can do beyond that helps tremendously as well. Send an email, ask questions, anything of that nature. All of it helps me and make the best content I possibly can for you guys as listeners and supporters of what I do. So I appreciate everything you do as well. But that's all I have for you guys for this episode. I'm your host, James Harris. This is the Comic Book Savant podcast. Until we speak again, you guys stay safe, and I will talk to you soon. Take care.